which is even crazier because the murderer was never caught, despite there being thousands of witnesses at the scene. But these times, stuff like this wasn't.
How the f did nobody catch this guy? Somebody saw him. You saw him. You saw what the f he did. You wasn't that drunk. You wasn't that drunk. It wasn't no way in hell.
You'd be hurting, hit her cervix. I'm not amateur. Had her on her back. I made her tap like she's a rat.
Quite confused.
And back then too, I'm gonna go ahead and pause it. What brought out the mask too? Cause I noticed a lot of people back in that was gangbanging, they don't got their face covered up. Like what? What's up with that? What's up with covering the faces is like that? What happened? I don't know. I just got a lot of questions.
Peckham now, but that's a whole nother story to get into another time.
You know what I'm saying? See, yeah, all of them are raw drilling.
Many diss tracks were going back and forth between the gangs, as well as shots. In the same year of 2008 in October, Brixton older members got the drop on a Peckham member's house called Terms and waited in the parked car outside his house. When Terms appeared outside his house, they shot him on his doorstep, leaving him to die. Terms was a member of the SN1 gang in Peckham, which stands for Spare No One. And this is the same gang that the famous rapper Giggs was part of. And Giggs pays respect to Terms sometimes in his songs. It didn't take more than a month for Peckham to respond to this though. In November, Peckham members got the drop that some members from the Brixton gang OC were clubbing at a nightclub called SE1 in Bermondsey, South London, and pulled up to the club, shooting Errol Davis close range in front of 2,500 clubbers, which is even crazier because the murderer was never caught, despite there being thousands of witnesses at the scene. But these times, stuff like this wasn't.
How the f did nobody catch this guy? Somebody saw him. You saw him. You saw what the f he did. You wasn't that drunk. You wasn't that drunk. It wasn't no way in hell. It wasn't no way in hell that nobody saw what was going on. You mean to tell me y'all was in there shaking y'all ass so much, having a great time, this got wasted and smoked in front of you? Hell, nobody in there was wearing masks. You knew who did that. You know who did it. Talking about nobody knew what the was going on. They ain't got no mask on. Nowadays, if you saw somebody, hey, yo, boom, and you, yeah, it's hard to tell because everybody is wearing the big ass parking. And where did the Parker situation come from, guys? Because all of them got hoodies on. So I just want to know, where did this come from? But y'all know who did that. And you saw it.
Because there was low-level security and no cameras in some of the clubs in 2008, which is something you will never see in clubs in London nowadays. Quite recently, actually, in 2016, the police found the same handgun which murdered Errol Davis at the nightclub in the possession of a man called Andre Chambers, who lived in Woolwich, which is quite sus. It was also later found out that the same weapon which was involved in Errol Davis's murder was also involved in 2 other attempted murders and 1 murder. But Andre Chambers was never found guilty for the murders with little to no evidence, apart from handling the weapon. But that's not enough to go down for a murder. While this direct war between Brixton and Peckham was occurring, there were also a lot of separate gangs and areas who joined alliances with both areas. This was basically turned into some World War III stuff, the South London version. One set based in Old Kent Road, called OBY, in South London were affiliated with Peckham. But a dispute between the members started a feud between OBY and Peckham, resulted in OBY members joining Brixton in the fight against Peckham, which was fully signified in the trap between the 2 gangs called Brooklyn to Baghdad. But OBY went off to a bad start in his feud after losing one of their younger members called Baby Ryder. His real name was Sunday Essia, and he was a 15-year-old orphan from Nigeria after his mum and dad both died when he was younger, and he started to get involved in the South London feud. Before he was stabbed, he pulled out an imitation firearm on 4 rival members. When they realized it was fake, they chased him through a park while he was screaming for his life, begging his killers not to kill him and spare his life. But he was ultimately stabbed 9 times and left to die. So after the back and forth in 2008, Brixton and Peckham was literally a no-go zone. And me personally, growing up as a kid around these times, despite me not actually living in the area and being too young to understand all this stuff, I just knew Brixton and Peckham was a place you do not go. Even the Member of Parliament of Peckham at the time.
That's absolutely right. That's why I like Kid Nerd. He absolutely right. I wouldn't even go nearby. I wouldn't go nearby it. I don't care who in there. I'm not going by that boy. I'm not. Because the moment I hey yo, I'm coming, G, I'm running away. I'm not gonna come here, G. I'm not. You absolutely right, Kid Nerd. Don't go nowhere near there.
Would wear a bulletproof vest and have security whilst you walk through Peckham, further embracing the name Pecknam. Then 2009 hit, and this was a big year for music from both sides, but especially from the Peckham side of things, when Giggs dropped a couple mixtapes and started putting some of his other members onto music, like Gunna D and Killer Kai. But Giggs was under a lot of pressure from the police at the time, who would cancel his shows, warn labels not to work with him, and even banned him from appearing in TV and radio, which is something we see a lot now with police taking down these drill music videos. Well, the reason why police was so onto Giggs is because the streets police were crazy at these times, and Giggs' Peckham gang SN1 were making headlines early on in 2009 when they executed the ex-member in broad daylight on a busy street because he fell out with the gang earlier on. This was a ticking point for police because it was seeming to the public at this time that the gangs had took control and could do whatever they want, which was essentially true. So police started gathering CCTV footage of previous rideouts from both Peckham and Brixton gangs in an attempt to take down some members. Police sent over this footage to Peckham members' lawyers as proof of their involvement in the feud, which a member then grabbed the footage of his lawyer and uploaded it to YouTube. The original video is no longer up, but a re-upload of it is still on YouTube today, and shows Peckham members riding out in Brixton in masses. And when looking at this footage, this is some propaganda-worthy stuff.
God damn!
The videos are so funny, and all the footages just show how crazy these times really were. Like, gangs were just riding their ops with 30 guys on pedal bikes, loaded with guns and knives. There's no way you could get away with that stuff nowadays in London. 3 boys can't even walk to the shop in London without getting stopped by police, let alone that many people on bikes. Brixton gangs responded to this YouTube video.
Look how many of them is it? That is a lot of people. Look at them. Look at that. Imagine getting chased by that. Imagine getting chased by that. They ringing the bell. Hey yo fam, ding 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 ding. Hey yo fam. Hell no. Hell no. I'm kicking somebody's bike over. I'm sticking a stick in somebody's tire and making them fall off. There's no. You're not about to chase me on it.
You're liars. And the whole year of 2009 was literally just filled with violence and diss tracks, with some real classics like Wreckagee from Peckham younger members. Around the same time of this release, a 13-year-old boy was stabbed 5 times in South London due to the feud between these areas, which hit national attention because 13 is hella young. And I think this rang into a lot of people's mind that this issue was very bad, because kids as young and even younger than 13 were now known to be involved in this. And on top of all this Brixton and Peckham beef, Peckham were having their own issues inside the area, and the civil war started to ignite in the Peckham area, which was fully all out after a member of the MLB gang or Mandem on Brandon was shot dead by Peckham Olders. MLB is a gang from the Brandon estate in South London, which is the same estate drill group Moscow 17 is based in. Peckham rapper Snap Capone was linked to the murder but managed to beat the case, but a member was sent to prison for hiding the gun used in the murder. This created a lot of politics between Peckham and the Peckham affiliated gangs, and eventually after many disputes, members of an estate called Lexham Estate split away from the Peckham sets and started beef in Peckham, which just started turning Peckham very messy. At the same time, different Peckham sets started turning on each other, and because Peckham is such a big area and had so many different estates, the gangs just started keeping inside their estate. One of these being the Pelican estate, which started beefing other Peckham gangs after the disagreement, which in December of 2010 resulted in 2 members being stabbed and 1 being shot to death. The member who died was called Vesta, and police were investigating the situation heavily at the time. So while this investigation was taking place, a younger member of a rival Peckham gang started to go onto the Pelican estate and post leaflets through the doors, which said, and I quote, "Stop snitching or we'll come for you," which must have been hella threatening for the normal residents who just live on the estate and had nothing to do with the gang situation. 2 members, Tiny Nutty and Jungle, were convicted and sent to a minimum of 30 years for the murder, just before Tiny Nutty got booked for the murder of Vesta. His older, who was called Nutty, was on remand in prison for a firearm charge. Around these times especially, it would be common for older members to have youngers, which would then take on their name essentially, just like how Tiny Nutty took on Nutty's name. A 17-year-old from Peckham was also on the same charge as Nutty for the firearm, but just like how gang hierarchy works, other members were pressuring the 17-year-old to plead guilty to the firearm charge, which would then allow Nutty to be freed. The 17-year-old refused though, which resulted in other members executing the 17-year-old by luring him into a car and shooting him in the back of his head.
What? So either way it goes is a trap. It ain't nowhere to go. That's because if you plead guilty, your life is over. If you refuse to, your life is over. That's some
on the day of the court hearing. Nutty was accused of arranging the murder because of the conflicting stories.
Bro, what?
And he looked even more guilty after officers found the lyrics in his cell saying, "Kill your co-defendant if he's snitching in court." Like, I don't think you could get any more bait than writing those lyrics. It's not even like it's a catchy line or anything.
How smart is that? How smart is that? That's great. That's a great job. That's a great way to cover up your tracks. By having something like that in your cell. Kill your co-defendant. Bro. Why do you guys do stuff like this?
I think he was just screaming, "Please lock me up." And that's exactly what they done after finding him guilty of the gun charges and arranging the murder, which he is now serving 32 years for. Also, the Peckham rapper, who is known by a street name CS, was actually caught and convicted for setting the car on fire after the 17-year-old was shot and killed, which he served 4 years for. So as you could tell, Peckham was just a mad area at these times. The civil war they were having was probably more active than their beef with Brixton ever was. One death that really shocked the area was the death of a respected member called Taz. He died during the chase when he crashed his motorbike. Family members put up a shrine of Taz where the accident occurred, where the ops then camped outside the same day of his death. And when a member called Little Groove visited the shrine, they shot him dead the same day. So Peckham was literally a no-go zone at this point. Like literally everyone was just beefing each other. And while all this
What?